What pisses me off is this idea that because Europe had Mozart and Bach, Beethoven, and all these names that you hear about all the time, European society was somehow more civilized than everyone else. I keep hearing this argument and it's complete nonsense. So when you actually look at the what life was like back then, we've somehow convinced ourselves that artistic genius equals moral superiority. Like because some rich guys could pay composers to write symphonies, that means their entire society was advanced and enlightened. It's cherry picking at its finest. Okay, well, let's talk about what civilized, quote unquote, Europe actually looked like when these masterpieces were being written. Most people couldn't read. Most people were basically property, serf, tied to land they never owned. People died at 35 years old. And that's just Europe. While Mozart was composing, Europeans were busy enslaving and raping millions of innocent people in Africa, Asia, etc. Stealing entire continents and financing those fancy courts with blood money. The same audiences uploading symphonies were profiting from genocide, multiple genocide. So I don't find like what they're doing in Palestine right now shocking or surprising because the entire history of Europe is genocide after genocide. That's in their DNA. So this whole look at how civilized they were, for who exactly? Who are you talking about exactly? That's what I'm trying to understand. So it's like the 2% who could afford concert tickets, or maybe for those people, Europe was civilized at the time. Now let's compare that with the Muslim world. The Ottomans, Mughal, and Safavid Empire were complex society with their own rich culture, science, and arts flourishing alongside classical music and architecture. Literacy rates were higher in some regions. Public works like hospitals, schools, and library were funded by the state and wealthy patrons. And scholars preserved and advanced knowledge in medicine, astronomy, philosophy, etc. Sure, this empire had their flaws, hierarchies, conflict, and social inequality, but they weren't the barbaric backwaters some Western narratives make them out to be. In fact, while Europe was plagued by serfdom and brutal class divides, many Muslim societies operate under different legal and social systems that in some cases offered protection to minorities and established public welfare. This isn't just about history. The dangerous narrative is that producing great art gives you a free pass to be brutal. It's like saying, yeah, we committed atrocity, but look at how pretty this music is. Like, this isn't unique to Europe. Ancient Greece gave us democracy on the backs of slaves. The Renaissance art you admire was funded by corrupt bankers and church officials. And I don't want to go into the whole church thing and the Christianity in Europe because that's just a whole different topic and it's really absurd what they made those churches. Anyway, American blues and jazz were born from community who faced systemic oppression. And that's why you hear a lot of times people say that white people don't have culture. Great art and systemic cruelty have coexisted throughout history because of art need resources and resources often come from exploitation, but you don't have to do it that way. There's always a better way to do it if you just listen. I think we tell ourselves this story because it's comforting. It lets us feel good about our cultural heritage without dealing with the ugly part. Just bury it somewhere and move on. We point to Bach or Mozart or any of these people and say, see, we're the good guys. We're civilized. Another thing Most people do not care about music. Like most civilization, they don't value music. I mean, I like music. I like classical music. I listen to it all the time. But the vast majority of people in this world, they don't value it like that. Anyway, civilization isn't about who made the most complex music. It's about how you treat people who can't fight back. The minority is the oppressed. By that measure, many so-called golden ages were pretty barbaric. Look, I'm not saying we should stop listening to classical music or burn down museum. The art is still beautiful, but we need to stop using it as evidence that some society are inherently superior to other. Maybe instead of asking what great art did they produce, we should ask how did they treat their poor, their minorities, their enemies, because that tells you a lot more about whether a society was actually civilized. The bottom line is having great composer doesn't make your society great. It just means some rich people had good taste in music. And like I said previously, I like those composers. They have made beautiful music, beautiful melodies. I listen to them all the time. But the rest is just marketing. Anyway, that's just my rant. Go listen to some Beethoven if you like, but just remember who was paying who was paying for it. See you next time.